Every conversation leaves invisible fingerprints, and the surprising part is that most people never notice them. A smile can hide frustration, a promise can cover selfish motives, and confident words can distract from actions that quietly reveal the truth. The human brain is naturally drawn to language, yet behavioral experts have long understood that consistent actions tell a far more accurate story than carefully chosen sentences. That is why some people can predict betrayal before it happens, recognize honesty without asking endless questions, and avoid manipulation while everyone else is still convinced by appearances. The difference is not luck, special talent, or mind reading. It is the ability to notice patterns that most people ignore every single day. Tiny pauses, repeated choices, shifting priorities, and reactions under pressure often expose intentions long before the truth becomes obvious. What looks like kindness may actually be convenience. What seems like confidence may be insecurity hiding behind a polished image. Even more surprising, many of the strongest clues appear during ordinary moments that seem completely unimportant, making them easy to miss until it is too late. Throughout this video, you will discover simple psychological principles that help explain why actions speak louder than promises and why repeated behavior is one of the most reliable ways to understand another person. You will learn how to recognize the difference between genuine interest and temporary effort, why consistency matters more than charm, how stress quietly reveals character, and why the way someone treats people who cannot benefit them says more than any compliment ever could. Along the way, we will explore fascinating insights into human behavior that are rarely discussed, including why the brain often ignores obvious warning signs in order to protect existing beliefs and relationships. These hidden tendencies influence friendships, family connections, romantic relationships, workplaces, and even brief encounters with strangers, affecting decisions that can change the direction of our lives without us realizing it. Stay with us until the very end, because the final lesson brings every clue together into one simple principle that can completely change the way you read people from this day forward. Once you understand it, many confusing interactions from your past may suddenly make perfect sense, and future decisions may become clearer than ever before. This is not about becoming suspicious of everyone or judging people after a single mistake. It is about learning to observe carefully, think critically, and trust evidence over assumptions. The most revealing signals are often the quietest ones, and those who recognize them early are far less likely to be misled by appearances. If exploring psychology, human behavior, and the hidden patterns behind everyday interactions interests you, then you are in exactly the right place. Welcome to the channel, and before we begin, subscribe and join our growing community for more powerful insights that help you understand people and the world around you in a completely different way. Most people believe the truth is hidden behind complicated body language or secret psychological tricks, but reality is much simpler than that. The clearest signal is not a single action, it is repetition. Anyone can be patient once. Anyone can be generous once. Anyone can apologize after making a mistake. A single moment tells you almost nothing because human beings are influenced by emotions, stress, lack of sleep, pressure, and hundreds of small factors that change from day to day. One difficult morning can make a kind person seem distant. One unexpected problem can make a calm person appear frustrated. Judging someone's entire character from one isolated event often creates false conclusions. The real story begins when the same behavior appears again and again until it becomes impossible to ignore. This is one of the most important ideas in psychology. Habits reveal priorities because habits require repeated choices. Every repeated choice is a small vote for what someone truly values. Words are easy to create in seconds, but patterns take weeks, months, and sometimes years to build. That is why experienced investigators, negotiators, and behavioral experts spend less time listening to promises and more time observing consistency. They know that repeated actions slowly remove the mask that people try to present to the world. Think about someone who always says they value honesty. The statement sounds impressive, and most people accept it without questioning it. Then a small situation appears. They tell a harmless lie to avoid responsibility. That alone does not define them. Everyone makes mistakes. Days later, they exaggerate another story to make themselves look better. Soon they hide information that would make them uncomfortable. After that, they break a promise and invent an excuse instead of admitting the truth. Suddenly, a pattern begins to appear. The individual event was never the problem. The repetition is what matters. Each decision points in the same direction until their real priorities become visible. The human brain naturally searches for shortcuts. It wants quick answers. It wants to decide whether someone is trustworthy after one conversation or one positive experience. This tendency saves mental energy, but it also creates blind spots. A charming personality can make people ignore repeated disrespect. A confident voice can distract from unreliable behavior. A friendly smile can cover selfish intentions. The brain often remembers the impressive first impression while quietly dismissing the evidence that appears afterward. This is why many people feel shocked when a friendship suddenly ends badly or when a trusted coworker acts selfishly. Looking back, they begin to notice dozens of warning signs that seemed unimportant at the time. Late replies that always came with excuses, promises that slowly disappeared, support that existed only when it was convenient. Small moments that looked unrelated were actually connected pieces of the same pattern. Patterns work because intentions influence decisions every single day. A person who genuinely respects others will usually demonstrate that respect in different situations even when nobody is paying attention. A person who constantly seeks personal advantage will repeatedly choose options that benefit themselves, even if those choices appear harmless individually. Over time, these decisions create a predictable rhythm. Once you learn to recognize that rhythm, understanding people becomes much easier. This does not mean people cannot change. Growth is possible for everyone. Someone may recognize unhealthy habits and consciously replace them with better ones. But even positive change creates its own pattern. Instead of making empty promises, the person begins showing steady improvement. They become more reliable week after week. They accept responsibility without endless excuses. Their actions slowly become consistent with their words. Real change is visible because it appears repeatedly instead of disappearing after a few days. Another common mistake is giving extraordinary importance to dramatic moments while ignoring ordinary ones. A grand gesture receives attention because it is emotional and memorable. Buying an expensive gift, making a public apology, or delivering an inspiring speech creates a strong impression. Yet everyday behavior often carries much more information: returning messages on time, keeping simple commitments, listening without interrupting, arriving when promised, showing respect during routine conversations. These ordinary actions require continuous effort, and continuous effort is far more difficult to fake than one dramatic performance. Behavioral researchers often focus on observable actions for this exact reason. Thoughts remain private, but choices become visible. Every decision leaves evidence. Every repeated decision creates a habit. Every habit slowly reveals priorities that words alone cannot hide. There is another interesting reason patterns are so reliable. People become tired of acting. Maintaining a false image requires constant attention. Eventually, mental energy runs out, routines return, and natural behavior begins to appear again. Someone pretending to be patient may remain calm for an hour but lose control whenever small inconveniences appear. Someone pretending to care may remember important details for a few days but gradually stop making any effort at all. Time quietly exposes the difference between performance and reality. Once you begin observing life through this lens, relationships start looking different. Instead of asking whether someone sounded convincing, you start asking whether their actions remain consistent over time. Instead of focusing on isolated moments, you look for direction. Is the pattern moving toward honesty or avoidance, responsibility or excuses, respect or convenience, kindness or control? The answers become surprisingly clear because repeated behavior rarely hides its destination. That naturally leads to the next question. If patterns reveal intentions, what specific patterns deserve the closest attention? The first and perhaps most reliable answer is effort. Every person has limited time, limited energy, and limited attention. Where those resources consistently go reveals what truly matters. People protect what they value, they invest in what they care about, they return to what holds genuine importance even when life becomes busy. Words can create an image, but effort quietly exposes reality. Success has a unique way of revealing what people hide inside themselves. Most conversations allow someone to prepare a response, choose the right words, and create the image they want others to see. Another person's achievement is different. It arrives without warning and often produces an immediate emotional reaction that is much harder to control. That first response can quietly expose confidence, insecurity, generosity, jealousy, or hidden competition long before any of those qualities are spoken out loud. This is why paying attention to how people react when someone else wins can tell you far more than listening to them talk about kindness or loyalty. A person who feels secure in their own journey usually has no problem celebrating the success of others. They congratulate sincerely, ask questions with genuine curiosity, and encourage future growth without making the moment about themselves. Their support feels effortless because another person's progress does not threaten their own sense of value. They understand that someone else's achievement does not reduce their opportunities or diminish their abilities. Instead of comparing, they appreciate. Instead of competing, they connect. That attitude creates trust because it comes from abundance rather than fear. On the other hand, insecurity often appears in subtle ways that many people miss. A compliment arrives with a hidden comparison. Congratulations are quickly followed by a story about an even bigger accomplishment. Excitement disappears and the conversation suddenly changes direction. Sometimes the achievement is minimized with phrases that make it seem less impressive than it really is. Sometimes flaws are highlighted immediately after good news is shared. Sometimes silence replaces enthusiasm completely. None of these reactions automatically make someone a bad person, because everyone experiences moments of comparison, but repeated behavior begins to reveal a deeper pattern. If every success around them creates discomfort instead of encouragement, the real struggle may not be with other people but with their own self-worth. There is an even more revealing behavior that appears in manipulative personalities. Instead of openly competing, they redirect attention. The spotlight moves away from the person celebrating and returns to themselves almost instantly. A promotion becomes an opportunity to discuss their own career. A graduation becomes a story about their past achievements. A personal victory becomes a reason to introduce a completely unrelated problem that demands sympathy. The conversation quietly shifts until the original moment disappears. At first, this pattern can look harmless, but over time it reveals a constant need to remain the center of attention. Genuine support requires the ability to let someone else shine without feeling invisible. People who consistently redirect attention often seek validation rather than connection, and their priorities become visible through repetition rather than isolated moments. Another interesting detail appears when success belongs to someone who cannot provide anything in return. Watch how people react to a stranger receiving praise, an unknown athlete winning a competition, or a coworker from another department earning recognition. There is no personal benefit involved, yet some people still smile because they naturally enjoy seeing effort rewarded. Others immediately search for reasons why the achievement was undeserved, lucky, or unfair. These reactions are powerful because they happen without personal stakes, making them difficult to fake. Encouragement is also expressed through action rather than words. A supportive person remembers important milestones, shares opportunities, offers useful advice, and celebrates progress consistently instead of only appearing when success is already obvious. Their investment continues even when nobody notices. In contrast, empty encouragement often sounds impressive but disappears when effort is required. The difference between real support and performance becomes visible through consistency. At the same time, it is important not to build an entire opinion from one emotional moment. A stressful day, personal disappointment, or unexpected news can influence anyone's reaction. Reading intentions is not about collecting isolated incidents and turning them into permanent labels. It is about observing repeated choices across different situations and allowing time to reveal what remains consistent. One mistake does not define character. One awkward response does not reveal hidden motives. One disagreement does not prove disrespect. Human beings are complex, emotional, and constantly changing. The most reliable observer resists the temptation to judge quickly and instead pays attention to direction rather than isolated events. When honesty appears repeatedly, trust naturally grows. When excuses appear repeatedly, confidence slowly fades. When respect remains steady through easy and difficult moments alike, intentions become much easier to understand. Context also matters because identical actions can carry completely different meanings depending on the situation. A delayed reply might reflect a busy schedule instead of indifference. A quiet reaction might come from exhaustion rather than jealousy. A forgotten promise may result from overwhelming responsibilities instead of disrespect. This is why patience is one of the strongest tools for reading people accurately. Looking at one event creates assumptions. Looking at 20 events creates patterns. Looking at those patterns over time creates understanding that is far more reliable than first impressions or emotional guesses. The goal is not to become suspicious of everyone, but to become aware of repeated consistency that quietly reveals priorities. Every conversation, every decision, every small act of effort, every reaction under pressure, and every response to another person's success becomes another piece of a larger picture. As those pieces slowly connect, intentions become easier to recognize without needing secret techniques or impossible mind-reading skills, leading to one final question that brings every principle together and changes the way human behavior is understood from that point forward. The biggest clues were never hiding in secret gestures or mysterious expressions. They were quietly repeating themselves every single day, waiting for someone to notice. A broken promise that kept happening, a small act of kindness that never changed, a calm response during difficult moments, a habit of showing up when it mattered most. The truth about a person is rarely revealed in one dramatic event. It is written in the ordinary choices they make again and again. Hope often convinces us to focus on potential instead of reality. We believe that the next conversation will be different, that the next promise will finally be kept, or that one impressive moment can erase a long history of inconsistent behavior. But patterns have a way of cutting through uncertainty. They show us where someone places their time, their energy, their respect, and their loyalty. And once you begin paying attention to those patterns, you stop relying on guesses and start understanding people with far greater clarity. The fastest way to read someone's true intentions is not learning a magic trick or memorizing body language secrets. It is developing the patience to observe what remains constant when emotions change, when circumstances become difficult, and when nobody is watching. Words can create an image, but repeated actions create a reputation, and that reputation is usually the closest thing to the truth. From this moment on, watch a little more carefully. Listen a little less to promises and a little more to consistency. Notice who celebrates your victories, who keeps their commitments, who treats every person with respect, and who stays true to their values even when life becomes challenging. Those small moments will tell you more than the longest conversation ever could. If this video gave you a new way of understanding people, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join us for more powerful insights into psychology, human behavior, and the hidden patterns that shape our everyday lives. Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who always tries to see the best in others, because this knowledge might help them avoid the mistakes that so many people make. Now we want to hear from you. What is the one behavior that instantly makes you trust or doubt someone? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because every experience adds another piece to the puzzle of human nature. Until the next video, remember one simple truth. People can control their image for a moment, they can control their words for a conversation, but over time, their habits, their choices, and their consistency will always tell the story they never intended to reveal.